Welcome, everyone, to episode 122 of 1 Hour, 1 Decision, 1H1D. I am Chris.
And I am Tom.
And we take 60 minutes and play a random game on Xbox Game Pass and decide, well, is fighting in the Great War worth your time?
It was for millions of people.
That's right. So this episode, we're going to be talking about Battlefield 1 Revolution, developed by DICE, which, you know, they did a bunch of these Battlefield games.
They did, including Battlefront 2, which is special to me.
All right, the Star Wars stuff, yes. But this game came out back in October of 2016. I played this on the PC. It was a whopping 81.42 gigabytes. Tom, what about you?
Tremendous savings on the Xbox Series S, 74.9 gigabytes.
Ooh, okay.
What are you going to do with all those gigs? I don't know. You could store a whole bunch more games with it.
Yeah. You could probably store some of the tiny games that we've played. Many of the tiny games. So, you know. But what kind of game is this?
Okay, well, it definitely starts off as a first-person shooter, and I think we'll get into it when we talk a little bit later. But for me, it was also a third-person flight game.
Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah. For me, it was I wrote it down because I kind of wrote this initially, but I'm going to call it, at least in my hour, it was a single-player first-person shooter.
Yes.
Because there is a multiplayer part of it, but I did not even touch that part. So, what about that game loop, though?
Okay, so I got a little descriptive here. I put, step into the shoes of different allied soldiers and complete objectives to win the war.
Okay. I just wrote progressive story by mostly shooting other people. And I'll get into
yes.
I'll get into that a little bit.
That's accurate.
Yeah. I'll get into that a little bit during our likes and dislikes discussion here. So
sure.
So let's get right into it.
Well, I would like to say, and I think we're both kind of first thoughts here is similar. Is so like the music as the game was setting up was very like set the tone, got you like really like jazzed up and like, rah, I'm going to hit the ground running. And then it transitions like kind of immediately into this like really brutal opening cinematic.
Oh yeah.
And the game is like, hey, you are not meant to survive this. Like you're going to die a bunch.
Right.
And then you do this like really cool, like play as a soldier until you die.
Right.
And then you hop into the body of a different soldier until you die again.
Right.
And it just keeps that cycle through until you finish this prologue. Yeah. And I was like, oh man, this is really good. It was really well done.
Yeah, exactly. I thought it was really well done. And I thought the other part of it was every time you died, they would give a name of the soldier and, you know, their, you know, the year, which is when you just literally perished with them. And I think almost in a way, it was kind of a tutorial too, right? Because you had the different types of soldiers that you were playing with, right?
Yes.
In the multiplayer side of things, like on the single player side, which I think you and I just did anyway, it didn't really count as much. But yeah, like I thought I was really surprised how quickly they dropped you right into the action, into the fray. And I thought that was great. And like you said, like the presentation throughout the game, at least my experience, I thought was really well done, very cinematic, like you said, and yeah, like it didn't really. I mean, you know, they had CGI cutscenes and stuff like that in between, but for the most part, you're experiencing this thing as your character, whoever it is that you're playing as. So, and again, like that intro, that prologue really gave you a little tease of like what's to be expected throughout the rest of the game. Well, at least the story campaign. So that was really cool.
I liked that once you got through that prologue,
Hmm.
it dropped you kind of at like a war map and said, "All
Yeah,
right, here are I would think it was like six
I think so.
different stories that are available to you." And it wasn't like, okay, you have to play this one or have to play that one. It was like, no, you can play whichever one of these that you
Mm.
want to, you know.
Yeah.
And so I personally went for the pilot story because that
Hmm.
was most compelling to me.
Okay.
And I thought it was very interesting that it's like, okay, it loads up and you're doing a test flight and it's teaching you the
Oh,
tutorial kind of the it just kind of assumes that your character has never been in this plane before. It's like
yeah.
in the story written that way.
Right.
Takes you through that, takes you through some maneuvers. You learn how to pilot the plane, how to shoot at targets and things like that. And then very quickly it becomes dogfighting and then, gets rolled up into a war story.
Hmm. Yeah, I ended up picking. I just went sequentially. So I think the first mission is Mud and Blood, and you end up playing as a driver of the like one of the first tanks in ever created, which was pretty cool because like at least the way that they presented this character, it was pretty dark because like the guy used to be just like a regular driver, and then you see him on the battlefield with blood on his hands. Like it just like it does like a
Ooh.
jump cut there, and you're like, whoa, like all right, and then it jump cuts again to him getting ready to drive this to man this tank for the first time. So it was really cool. Like again, like and then like the kind of the back and forth, the dialogue between him and his like his the other people that are on in the tank with him, like his captain and stuff like that. It was really cool. Very, I think, very well done. With again, just going harping back on this whole presentation thing, but the one thing that I think all battlefields have generally done really well, which is a stark contrast to I thought Wolfenstein, the
Hmm.
gunplay. The gunplay felt really good. I
Yeah.
think like there was like uh like there was just like every gun that I used had like you could feel it. I don't know. I mean, I was just playing on mouse and keyboard. Like I'm sure with the controller you might have a little bit of force feedback and stuff like that, but it just it felt right. I don't know. I don't know how else to explain it, but it was definitely a better experience than Wolfenstein. I don't know about you, Tom, about that.
Well,
Did you?
I'll agree with you that like, so the prologue starts up and it's like you're definitely gonna die here, and then I wasn't dying, and I was like, huh, like, am I missing something? Or so I guess I agree with you. Like I felt really comfortable with those
Yeah.
setup controls because I was like murdering Axis guys, no problem. Um, to the point where it was like I almost had to start becoming reckless
Right.
so that I would go down and get brought back as somebody else.
Yeah.
So,
In
but
a
I mean, I
way,
think that's a compliment to the game because it did feel very tight. It felt
yeah.
great on the
Right.
controller. So,
And in a way, I guess that first sequence reminded me of that Halo, like the I think the last Halo. What do you call it? Sorry, give me one sec. Just want to make sure. I thought I had all my notifications off. Here we go. Sorry about that.
no problem.
Okay. Here we go. That opening sequence reminded me a lot about a lot like the ending of Halo Reach, which is like which is like an insurmountable force, like the Covenant coming after you and all that stuff.
Yeah.
This was like kind of like the flip side of it, which is pretty cool. And it's always great to like borrow cool things from other games that have done it well. So why not? And the other thing, I don't know if you noticed this, but there's destructible environments, which I, in a game like this where there's a lot of exploding things, I love that. I love when you can. It doesn't feel super scripted because you're like I don't know. I felt like with the Call of Duty games when things blew up, they just blew up because it was part of this particular
Yeah.
sequence. But this like you could literally take down like when I was riding my tank. I was blowing up a bunker. Like I could literally blow up that bunker because I have the like the shells to take it out, which was really
Right.
cool.
You
So
have munitions that are capable of
exactly.
destructing the environment, and so you can't.
Yeah. Yeah. So very
Uh,
cool. I'm glad they added that to this. But what else did you like about this?
last thing that I had on mind that I wanted to bring up was the you because it's a Battlefield game, and
Yeah.
this is pretty standard for these games, but I think it bears mentioning, is that you can custom keybind all the different modes.
Mm.
So it has its own default settings,
Yep.
for if you're on the ground or flying in a plane or whatever you may have. But you can set up custom bindings for every single one of those.
Oh.
So it's very I didn't need to because,
Hmm.
like I said, it handled really well. But for anybody who might like to play with an alternate key mapping, like this game is ready and waiting for you.
Yeah.
Um, and just in general, it has very extensive settings
Hmm.
options. So,
Yeah.
if it's maybe a little too sensitive or not sensitive enough, or maybe you need a little bit of a bigger dead zone or whatever,
Right.
like you can really get lost in the weeds there. But I consider that's a positive thing because in a game like this, you really want the controls to feel tight and
Yeah.
good, and
Yeah.
so you can get immersed and not be thinking about them while you're experiencing this whole game. So
Yeah. Last thing I do want to mention, this particular version of Battlefield 1 Revolution, has all the DLC
yes,
in it, which is great because I don't want to be going around. We've had experiences before where
hmm
DLC was missing and such. So it was you didn't get prompts like, "Hey, buy this DLC" or
nope,
whatever it is. You didn't get any of that stuff. It was like it's all baked in, so you don't have to worry about it, which was great.
yeah,
I'm really glad that we were able to play this game as opposed to maybe the launch version of Battlefield 1.
oh yeah,
And
no, it probably would have been terrible.
yeah, yeah. So speaking of terrible things, let's talk about dislikes.
uh, so the first thing I wrote was these hard hitting facts.
Mm,
Like, the game kept throwing up these things like, "Oh, yeah, like, this First World War is a really terrible thing for a lot of people." And
right.
like, the numbers would come up, and I was like, "Oh, yikes,"
Yeah. Yeah.
which, I sit down to play video games to have fun,
Right.
generally speaking. I don't know if I wanna be hit with all the depressing facts, but definitely did add to the realism and added to my respect for, people in the service. So
Yeah.
I think it was a good thing that they included it. I understand why they did it. It's
Yeah.
they're definitely going for realism with it. So
Yeah. I mean, maybe at times it was like overly like dramatic, maybe, and but I understand I understand what you're saying, and I also thought there was one point I think in the beginning opening credits or whatnot where they said this is the war that was supposed to end all wars. It didn't, and it was like,
yeah,
oh yeah, you're right. Didn't do anything other than make make people do some terrible, terrible things. And
yeah.
here we are. I want to say I only noticed this like for me in the couple of times that we've played EA games, all of them on the PC start in windowed mode. And like not even
Oh,
like full screen windowed. It's like 640 by 480.
oh,
Like I was like, what's going on here? I don't know why it does that every time, but it's just really weird that EA does that. So EA, when you're doing this for the PC, please make it right. Fix it for that. And in my particular playthrough with the tank, there's a sequence that happens where they use a pigeon to send the carrier pigeons to send this message out to get seek help. The problem the problem is you play as that pigeon.
oh, no way.
Yeah, uh, which I thought was okay. I kind of got what this, but the controls for this pigeon were terrible, terrible, and like you really do only need to go in one direction. But there's like one point where it like slightly veers, like the objective veers off to the left or whatnot. But it really moves like a tank, and I don't know what it is. Like the bird just kind of like went like this, and then I think it was like the controls were like inverse or something. But again, everything just was very slow, and I was like, it was really frustrating. It was such a frustrating part. with generally overall experience. But I don't know. I don't know if you had anything weird like that during your playthrough, but
Well, I will say that the transition from being really good in this prologue, because I felt like I was king shooter
right.
in the prologue. The second I got in the cockpit, I was having a tough time. Like it
Oh,
was really hard for me to fly and aim. Like I got flying okay,
yeah.
but the second I needed to be like shooting at stuff at the same time that I was flying, things got complicated.
Oh,
So I died a lot, kind of over and over again on the same missions. And to me, the default controls there felt overly sensitive and kind of floaty
oh, okay.
on the controller, at least. Maybe on the mouse and keyboard, it would have been different. So while I think they really nailed down the first person shooter part of it,
Yeah.
when you get behind the wheels of maybe a vehicle or a pigeon or an airplane,
Yeah.
um, that is not nearly as intuitive. Now, of course, as I mentioned before, you can go into the options and really mess with this.
Right.
Um, so you can solve this problem for yourself. But it is interesting to me that at least my experience was that I felt very like, whoa, like
Yeah.
not in control.
Hmm. Yeah. That's kind of unfortunate. I was wondering like how this compared to like because you've clearly played Star Wars Rebel Squadrons. Like,
Quadrants.
did that feel better in terms of flight and all that stuff compared to this game?
Well, it's a little hard to say because I played Squadrons with hands on stick and throttle.
Oh, okay.
Um, so like control scheme wise, if you're playing a flying game with a flight stick, that's just different.
Right. Right. Okay.
Um, but like I really did enjoy Battlefront 2, or at least the final version of Battlefront 2, just like we're playing the final version of Battlefield 1.
Right.
Um, and that came, I think, just after this in terms of the games that DICE made.
Hmm.
So it's clear that you can feel some of that same DNA,
Got it.
moving through these things.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
speaking of certain things like that,
Yeah.
this game is big.
Oh, yeah.
It takes up a lot of hard drive space for a random game. See, when a Star Wars game takes up tons of my hard drive space, that's okay because I want that to be there. It's not disputing for space. The space is there for the Star Wars game.
Right. Right.
In a case like this, it's like I don't know. This is
Yeah.
almost 80 gigs for me.
Yeah.
So
I mean, hey, with that Series S, that's a small drive. So
yeah,
any and everything can really kill it. Especially like yeah, I mean, I felt like a lot of these multiplayer, especially like the Battlefields, the Call of Duties, they're getting bigger and bigger in terms of
yeah.
their drive space that they're taking. It's nuts. And last thing I wanted to just bring up here. So while the game did feel good, like I felt like sometimes, especially in this mode with the tank, the AI seemed overly like dumb. Like they
Hmm.
just really weren't doing much. Like like there's a point where I'm doing like there's like a sneaking mission or sneaking part of this mission, and I was like literally like right behind one person, didn't even like raise any red flags or anything like that. So I was like, okay. So it was, but I mean, in a way, maybe it made me feel better because I was like, cool, I'm that much more stealthy than everyone else here. But whatever. I don't know if you had that kind of experience with the AI, but it was a bit too easy, I would say.
I can't say that. No, I
Okay.
had my hands full mastering the flying and stuff like that. So it seemed like it was just the right amount of hard for me.
Right. Okay. All right. Anything else here, or should we get to our other thoughts?
Um, I think there's a question mark, and I don't know,
Okay.
where this lives, but I was not able to go online.
Oh.
The game kept saying I was offline, but I was clearly online because I was
Hmm.
streaming while I was playing.
Right.
Um, so I'm not sure. Were you able to access the EA servers?
I didn't attempt it, but I I was trying to look it up to see if they actually turned off the servers or whatnot for this particular game. But again, this game came out back in 2016, so it's like, how
Yeah, and there
long are
and
they
there
supposed to do
are
it?
other Battlefields since.
Right, right.
So,
But I mean, there was apparently some sort of DLC that just came out recently for this game,
oh, okay.
so fairly recently. So I'm sure Dice is still supporting this game because some people still play it. And 64 player mode on PC. I'm not sure how it is on the Xbox because I mean, again, neither one of us actually played online. I don't believe it's cross compatible, like with Xbox and stuff like that. But How Long to Beat says that this game, at least the single player game, can be finished in about 6 to 9 hours.
Okay.
So respectable amount of time.
Yeah.
All things considered. I mean, again, if everything is just as polished as it looks like, I'm good with that. But yeah, that is that in terms of our other thoughts. Now, Tom,
Yeah.
are we going to be keeping this game on our said hard drives, or are we going to be casting it aside?
So here's what it
But
comes.
before we get to that, I do want to thank our lovely sponsor, cdkeys.com, for, helping us support the show. And you can help support the show by checking out all their cool stuff on their website. Check out the link in our description, both on the podcast and YouTube down below. And check out all the cool stuff they have. Again, not just PC stuff. They got Xbox, PlayStation, Game Pass subscriptions, all cool stuff. So support the show. Click that link. That'd be awesome. Sorry, Tom, I cut you off.
You monster. Well, I tell you what, my hour went by very quickly, even though I was sucking pretty hard flying. Um, and and even still, I was enjoying myself enough. I didn't want to stop playing, and I didn't want to stop that story. I want to hear how that story ends.
Yeah.
So I think at a minimum, I want to play through that story.
Nice.
And since they're broken up into chunks, you have that freedom. Right?
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have to play all 9 hours of this game.
No.
You might be able to play 90 minutes and get basically a short movie version.
Yeah.
So think about that.
Yeah. Awesome. And it's funny. I felt like I heard a lot of bad things about this game when it got released, and it might be just EA being EA at the time.
Yeah.
And in a way, I feel like this is one of those games that you got the kind of like the true vision of what Dice wanted to do after it was fully baked. After it's been out for what is this now? Math, like 7 years, right?
Yeah.
So that's like it was. I like the fact that I have all the DLC, and it was just it was a good time, and I had fun. I had fun. Like this got almost gave me vibes of 1942, Battlefield 1942,
Yeah.
like back in the day. And like look, I had fun. You might have fun too. And for me, I'm probably going to keep it and like you said, I'm just at least finish the story and see how it goes after that. So yeah. That's it. That's our thoughts. Let us know what you think of this game. Follow us and say hello on Twitter at TC1H1D or shoot us an email at TC1H1D@outlook.com. Our next streams are always on Twitch at twitch.tv/1H1D. And if you're watching this on podcasting, lovely YouTube, send us a comment down below and we'll try to respond to that.
Well, saved it.
I saved it. 1H1D is part of the QTB network. And if you like any and every kind of gaming content, we got, like I said, streaming, we got these podcasts here, we've got blogs, we've got merch, we've got all that cool stuff. So check us out over there at quitthebuild.com/network. So tell them.
Oh, that's right, Chris.
Yeah.
What are we going to play next?
What are we going to play next? We're going to find out with the help of the surprise me button. So here.
I was ready to say goodbye to everybody.
Oh, okay. Well, we will in just a moment. But here we go. Surprise me button. Tell us what we're playing next. Oh, okay. Well, unfortunately, Tom, it's another sequel.
Of course. How
But
could it not be?
it's not a first person shooter though.
All right. Okay. That's good. Change of pace.
Yeah, it might be an extreme change of, well, maybe, I don't know. Coffee Talk, episode 2, Hibiscus and Butterfly.
I have no idea what that is. I guess we'll find out.
I guess we will find out. So thank you so much everyone for tuning in, and we will catch you on the next one.
Thanks, everybody.